So today we're having a continuation meeting at the Zoning Board of Appeals. This continuation meeting of May 19th regarding the appeal request of Dana Prescott, Esquire, and Dave Boudreau regarding the approval of E23 LLC to construct a 30,000-gallon propane storage tank. We're one member less than we were last week, but we still have a quorum. And I'll ask you guys to introduce yourself again, just so everyone knows who you are.
Matt McDee.
I'm Bob Lehman.
Jim Southworth.
Has everyone signed the book? So we all know who's here. And also, please make sure your cell phones are on silent. Okay, so last meeting that we had, we reviewed everything that we had presently received. So this is a continuation of that, but we're going to look at just the new items that showed up, and we had asked for information about gunshots affecting the tanks. So, do you have someone coming, Dwayne?
Let's see. I do have a question though.
Can you stand up to the mic, please?
Yeah, I'm Dwayne. Hi, I'm Dwayne Prescott. And you said new items. Is this new information?
Just the information we received last week. There's no new information.
Okay, as I was looking into these things, I don't know if I have everything you have, but because this is an appeals hearing, where
Right.
this is all about the planning board's decision and the planning board's actions, and there can be no new evidence brought into this that you can review that was not at the planning board public hearing. And that's Maine state law.
If I could be heard on that,
Go ahead.
Waterborough's ordinance says that the zoning board of appeals hears any appeal, including one from the planning board, de novo, which means it conducts its own hearing, it collects its own evidence, it makes its own findings of fact and conclusions of law. It's right in the ordinance that that's how it's done. So it is not based upon what the planning board
Wouldn't that
did.
be
And
less-
that is what the board has been doing.
Isn't that less restricted than state law?
No, state law does not require that it be either de novo or appellate. That is determined by individual municipalities.
This Maine law is specifically directed at zoning boards and your authorities and your restrictions. And it clearly says this is not under de novo. That just says that we're going to have a new hearing on the same information. Right in Maine law, when it comes to zoning boards, it says the board may not accept new evidence as part of this review. Then it goes on to say the board is limited to this review to the previous board's record established by the board whose decision is subject to review. So I say that there is no new evidence. This is not a new thing. We're going to work with the evidence.
If that was the case, we would have loved to have finished this last week. If
What do
we
you
couldn't
mean?
look at the new evidence. The only reason we extended it was because we were asked by your representative to have time to review the new paperwork we had. Otherwise, we could have possibly ended this last week.
Well, you got to consider what Maine law says about your zoning board and your
Then
authorities and
we'll take
restrictions.
this and set it aside, and we'll finish.
Maine law does not say that. There is case law that is very clear.
There is no new
that it's-
information.
There's
It's
no
the
new
same thing that's
information,
there.
but he does have to put on a new case. He has to put on his evidence and his witnesses in front of you, just as was done before the planning board, and that's what has been done. Your ordinance sets your standard of review. There is no statute. I'm familiar with the statutes on land use law, Mr. Prescott. There's no statute that says that zoning boards of appeal only review things on an appellate basis. They review it on the basis that's established under their ordinances. And section 9.03 is very clear that this is a de novo proceeding. It would be nice if it were appellate, it would have gone a lot faster. But unfortunately, that's not what the ordinance says.
The only new information that I need to hear is what we asked. And what we asked was information about guns and the tanks. The rest of the stuff, we can put aside because it was the same pictures that's already in the book, and it was a summary. And it didn't give us any new information about anything. So all we have is what's in the book that came from the planning. You agree with that?
If we can't take in any new evidence, I would consider the gun thing new evidence. So,
I don't think it was. I think it was we're doing follow-up on something that was in here as a concern, and I think we're asking to clear that concern.
so you're saying anything that wasn't brought up last week, I mean, that was brought up but not presented last week, still counts as old evidence? I would consider it new evidence and inadmissible.
You have to accept whatever evidence is presented to you last week and this week. It's a de novo proceeding. That means it says right in the ordinance that you receive any oral and/or documentary evidence. Now, the chair is making the point, and I would agree with this, that most of the information that you've been provided is the same information that was provided to the planning board. But that doesn't mean that you're not conducting your own review of it, which you would not be doing if it were appellate. You'd only be looking at the ordinance to see if the planning board made some error or block. That's not what you're doing. You're going to have to go through each and every one of the site plan standards and make your own findings and conclusions, which I'm prepared to help you do tonight when we get through with the evidence.
And I would agree with you.
You okay with that, Mr. Prescott?
We'll move on.
Is it okay to talk about the bullet problem, or
Yeah.
does that go away?
No, that's
I mean, we asked for that information. Yes.
Good evening. I'm William A. Lee, attorney for Fabian Oil. And following up on the request made by the board last week, I contacted the Dale Hersey of the Maine Fuel Board for the source of information, and I got led to a couple different spots eventually to contact the Propar, which is the actual manufacturer of the tank itself. It's a Canadian company, and I was given the number for the U.S. representative. I called him, got his voicemail, which said he was on vacation.
Do we have an engineering report or not?
No, I do not. He didn't. I left a detailed message for what I was
Okay.
looking for him to
So
get
there's
back
no
to me,
evidence.
and he did not get back to me, so I can't
Okay,
offer
thank
anything
you.
further. But he was asked to look into it, and I did.
Okay,
For-
so with that, I think we're ready to go down through the list now.
Well, we're ready. Mr. Lane, Bill Lane, who designed the project site, did not get an opportunity to testify last week, and he is prepared to give brief testimony here tonight.
And why didn't he get an opportunity last week?
Well, we adjourned.
We adjourn.
Well, I know, but we sat here and we asked if anyone had anything else to submit, and
We were kind of pressed for adjourning last week, no offense, but we thought it was over.
At the beginning of the hearing, I introduced each witness I intended to call, and I gave you a summary of some of the testimony that Mr. Lane was going to testify to, but I said he was going to testify. But there was a pressure for time, and the other side had wanted some time to produce perhaps further evidence, so we ended up adjourning. So I'm prepared to offer.
so
his
the goal
testimony.
wasn't to adjourn last week. The goal was to hear all the evidence last week. We will let him speak, but
I think his testimony is directly related to the 15 items.
15 criteria, that's
that-
what, that's,
that
and that.
the
that's
attorney
what
is
the focus.
referring to.
So,
I'm still confused. When you came up and gave your presentation, why didn't everyone get up and speak at that point?
because they're going to speak one at a time, and I
But that's not how a presentation
So,
works.
Manny, real quick, we have been instructed by the board here that there would be the opportunity for give and take and questions in
Which we
between.
did.
Right, but that took up a lot of time, and there was a pressure to adjourn last week. I mean, so, we did submit that he would be testifying in writing this week. It went out and it was presented. There was no opposition to him.
I wish it were not a de novo hearing, because it's a duplication of a lot of effort, but the way the ordinance is worded, it clearly is a new hearing, and by statute, the applicant is to present all evidence that he wishes that is relevant to the subject, and Mr. Lane, as a professional civil engineer, is going to address the 15 criteria that you'll be reviewing to see if, in fact, the project has met them.
And
And
then-
I can take him through that fairly quickly, and to speed it along, I produced some detail of what he would be testifying to, and he can summarize that, and of course, is available for any and all questions that the board may have.
That was submitted last week, not this week. That
Right, that's nothing new.
Natalie, can you advise me on this?
Well, because the applicant has the burden of proof, and the applicant is saying that this was a witness that they said they were going to present last week, and I do recall his name was on the list, I believe that he should be given the opportunity. I think he's going to be relatively brief. There are a couple of standards that were not discussed in great detail last week. One of them is the stormwater standard, and because the applicant retains the burden of proof, the applicant should be given the opportunity to present testimony on those
Okay.
issues.
Thank you. Mr. Lane, can you, if you could step up to the...
David, that would be the site plan picture we talked about. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bill Lane from Rutland Driscoll Engineering and Surveying. I hope I can be brief. Appreciate your time and indulgence.
Again, your name is Bill Lane,
Correct.
and your occupation,
I'm a civil engineer
and how long have you been licensed as such?
for 29 years.
And your employer is whom?
Gartley and Dorsey Engineering and Surveying.
Were you engaged by Fabian Oil to do some work on a proposed project to install a 30,000 gallon bulk propane tank?
Yes, we prepared the sketch plan that's up on the display.
Okay. And there was have been some claims made that there are wetlands involved in this project, and one of the appellants said that. Could you comment on this claim, please?
Yeah, there are not wetlands delineated in the project area. There, in reviewing the shoreline zoning map, there are no wetlands or shoreline zone areas on this property. To the west of this property, and bisecting it north to south, there is a stream segment that bisects a number of these parcels as the stream flows to the south. That stream is approximately 600 feet west of the work site.
And did you prepare a document dated May 12, 2022 that states that the project meets the 15 standards of section 2.10 of the zoning ordinance?
May 11, yes.
Okay, excuse me, May 11th?
Yep.
Yes. I'd like you to briefly go through these standards, and I'll read them to you and ask you to explain how you believe that the project meets each of these standards.
Yes.
The first one is that the proposed use meets the definitions and/or requirements set forth in the zoning ordinance.
Correct. So I consulted the zoning map and determined that the portion of the work area is in the AR district, agriculture and residential. A portion of this property further to the west is also in the F&A, forest and agricultural district. And the subsection that's applicable under the ordinance is 306.02, section 21, where bulk propane storage, including propane tank refill stations, are conditional uses and structures, so they are allowable. The one conditional use standard is that the property has to be at least 5 acres. This property is 22.87 acres per the tax card, so it meets that standard.
Okay, the second criterion is that the proposed use will not create fire safety hazards by not providing adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles, that there will be adequate dry hydrants or adequate access to off-site dry hydrants from there to the site. Can you comment on how you believe this criterion is met by the proposed project?
Yes, and you've also heard some testimony to that effect from other professionals. This installation will comply with the National Fire Protection Association's Liquefied Petroleum Gas Code, NFPA 58, and also the Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code. In terms of access, there is clear access for emergency equipment from Secaucus Trail, which is a New York State numbered highway, and a clear access route to
Main
and
State,
around Main
not
State.
New York, but.
Excuse me, Main State. Did I say New? I beg your pardon. There is adequate access to the tank and to make forward progress all the way around the tank. One provision of the planning board's approval was that turning movements be limited to a particular direction clockwise around the tank, and that is readily doable. We've checked with turning radiuses for both motor carrier transport and the bobtails that will be using this facility. The TRC Environmental Corporation did fire safety analysis, and in consultation with the fire chief determined there's an adequate water supply.
Thank you. The third criterion is the proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets, or be inadequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site, or that it would damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties. And could you briefly explain how the proposed project meets this criterion?
Yes, these proposed lights are full cutoff LED fixtures that are going to be operated on motion sensors and will be situated some 400 feet from Secaucus Trail behind existing buildings, and so they will not have any glare or issues impeding the road. In addition, these cutoff fixtures are designed to not be on for any duration of time other than when needed for the operation to be performed, and will be protected by wooded buffers. The closest adjacent property line to the south would have an 80-foot wooded buffer available to it that would be maintained, so there would be no glare created.
The fourth criterion is that the provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development. And could you briefly explain how the proposed project meets this criterion?
Yes, the existing buildings will screen any residents on the easterly side of Secaucus Trail, and then the buffers I referenced to the north and to the south will screen adjacent properties. So a minimum of a 80-foot wooded buffer is proximate to the boundary to the south, and that will be maintained.
And what is the approximate distance from the proposed tank to the Boudreaux residence, which is to the north?
It's approximately 422 feet.
Thank you. The proposed, number 5 is the proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property as a result of noise, vibrations, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause. Could you briefly explain how you believe this criterion has been met?
Yes, this property is adjacent to Secaucus Trail, which is a main state highway with a posted speed limit of 50 miles an hour and a vehicle average annual daily traffic of in excess of 6,700 vehicles traveling at highway speeds. The vehicles that are going to be utilizing this facility will be traveling at significantly slower speeds and not create the kind of noise that is occurring on Secaucus Trail. Won't be able to be discerned because of that highway noise. This facility will be provided with reclaimed asphalt travelway surfaces, so they won't be creating dust. And aside from this, the facility is provided with limited additional lighting, sources of noise or sound, and the buffering is going to be maintained as mentioned.
Okay. Number 6 is the provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking, and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety or will not impose significant burdens on public facilities which could be avoided by reasonable modifications of the plan.
Yeah.
Could you explain how that criterion has been met?
Yep. So this site can utilize the southerly curb cut that exists, and vehicles can make forward progress all the way around the tank location so that they can make access to the tank for either the filling or being filled from that location and proceed forward progress around the tank and exit onto Secocas Trail without any backing operation into the road. And well clear of any other operations ongoing on the facility.
Number 7 is that the bulk, location, height, or design of proposed building structures or paved areas or the proposed uses thereof will not have a significant detrimental effect on private development, on adjacent properties, or on the value of adjacent properties, which could be avoided by reasonable modifications of the plan. Would you explain how you believe that criterion has been met?
Yep. Again, from Secocas Trail itself, this tank installation is behind existing buildings. To the north and to the south, it's separated by distance and by maintained buffers. So the tank location to its closest property line is 128 feet. The minimum standard for the NFPA is 50 feet. So this provides well adequate separation.
The next criterion is that the design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements or storm water detention ponds are not adequate. Could you explain how you believe this criterion has been met?
Yep. So this facility is not in a mapped flood zone. There are no floodways on the property. There are no existing flooding problems on the property. The soils that are on the property are adequate to safely convey and drain the new de minimis impervious area out to the roadside ditches on Secocas Trail.
And the next criterion is that there are adequate provisions that have been made for the disposal of wastewater or solid waste or for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination. Could you explain how you believe that criterion has been met?
This facility won't have any increase to wastewater, won't use any more water, won't discharge to the groundwater. As has been testified to before, propane is not a groundwater contaminant.
The next criterion is that whether adequate provisions have been made to control erosion or sedimentation.
So every contractor in Maine has to abide by the erosion sedimentation control law, and those provisions will be in place during the duration of construction, will require permanent stabilization measures. The primary one being the placement of the stone around the tank and the reclaimed asphalt around the perimeter drive, in addition to restoring any other disturbed areas so that they are not erosive.
The next criterion is that there are adequate provisions have been made to handle stormwater runoff or other potential drainage problems on the site.
Yep. This disturbed area that the facility is proposed to be sited in is characterized by fine sandy loams that will have an adequate capacity to either infiltrate through the stone or migrate water to the roadside ditching.
The next criterion is that the proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes.
I previously cited the fire safety analysis that was performed, and that was done in consultation with the fire chief. And the fire safety analysis and the fire chief have determined there's adequate water supply.
Yeah, the next criterion is that adequate provisions have been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law and Waterboro Hazardous Waste Ordinance.
So propane is not a hazardous waste to begin with, as defined in the ordinance. But this whole project is about safe conveyance and storage of propane. So they will plan and operate this tank in accordance with the NFPA standard I cited, NFPA 58. And then the conveyances will be regulated by federal motor carrier law and state motor carrier law.
The next criterion is that the proposed use will not have an adverse impact on significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat, which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan.
Those elements are not mapped on this property, and this existing facility is proposed to site a tank behind existing structures and be surrounded by wooded buffers.
The project will not increase nitrogen concentrations in surface or groundwater at the property line of the site in excess of state of Maine drinking water standards.
So this is not a non-applicable section, as this project won't generate nitrate or release it.
Thank you very much. And of course, he's available for any questions that anyone has.
Any questions?
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm not sure we know how tall the light poles are.
Well, that
I
was
know
a
that's an
question
issue.
that came in
Right.
in
I can
the
actually
news
answer.
stuff, in an email today or yesterday.
Right, and I don't think that Mr.
Well-
Attorney Prescott is here tonight to ask the question, so.
No, but I was gonna ask
Okay.
Dwayne to come back up. And,
I can answer that when it's time.
you can answer, I'm still gonna ask Dwayne to come up.
Oh, that's fine, I have no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, well,
Do
thank you.
you have anything?
Yes. They talked about the lights. Do you have anything on your desk that's actually in print? What these
On-
lights are going to look like? And
I
'Cause I-
would have to go back through this and look for it, but.
Well, because as I recall, so far, we haven't really seen anything. It's been my experience that this needs to be in writing. What type of lights, it's usually a diagram showing where they're going to be, where they're going to be facing, otherwise it's just hearsay, it's not a fact. The 80-foot buffer, it doesn't show it on that,
The what buffer?
the 80-foot buffer they're talking about is not on the print, which means, once this is over with, where's going to be the fact that we can turn to if it turns out it's only 40 feet, 60 feet? It really should be documented. They talked about the noise on the property, they talked about the noise on Route 5, but they didn't mention the noise sideways towards a residential area, which this is really going into a middle residential area. And where do we have proof about the stormwater management? They talked about it's not going to do this, it's not going to do that. Do you have it in writing anywhere, on a print, any kind of stormwater management project? So it's hearsay, it's not a fact.
Again, I would have to look through the.
Okay.
folder.
Now, is there going to be any regulation that this is as far back as it goes, because they're talking about, this is not a floodplain? Well, I contest it is. There's a runoff stream that goes right where the concrete slab is going to go, and then the water flows to the back of the property. It's very wet, and it sits still till it soaks in. So this is wet. So I think you guys ought to do a sidewalk before you let them plant a bottle on top of a stream. Let's see. Aquifers, we haven't heard anything about aquifers. At the other meeting, they did mention, they admitted there's aquifers under that property. Well, where are they? How many of them? One of them feeds my well, which I drink out of. And we all know heavy trucks may cave it in. So, and in the ordinance, it dictates, you got to note this as well as state law. Where is the proof of where these aquifers are, and they're not going to get damaged? We don't have any information on that at all. They talked about fire safety, and they talked to the fire department about how much water it's going to take to put this out. Well, by the math I did, it'll take every truck we have just to put out Fabian's property. Well, what about the forest fire, and what about the house fires? So no, this does not meet public safety. If all the trucks are tied up at Fabian's place, and somebody else's house across town catches on fire, that's an extra 40 minutes waiting for some other town to respond. This project is huge in lack of public safety, as it goes right in the middle of a residential neighborhood and agriculture. They're talking about 80 feet right off the woods. If there is a problem, this is going up in flames, and Waterboro only said they can put out the bottle. What about the rest of the town? So there's a lot here that is not in writing, and that's what I'm asking you, make them put it in writing, and make, I guess what's even more important is it should not go back further, because if you notice the pictures they showed us, every single other property they have is flat-landed, from property line to property line. So if you don't put a regulation on there saying, this is all you get, it'll be a propane tank farm in a flash. They keep talking about noise. Well, let's talk about diesel trucks. And we've all heard those compressors, especially when they get a flat, and those air guns and everything else. So yeah, this is going to be way noisier. And they are way noisier than cars. They go right by my house, engine braking. And I'm not speaking of Fabian specifically, but when it was Deer Pond Fuel and And now they're accelerating, they go right by my house with their foot and it's shifting, so yeah, they're louder than cars. Common sense would tell you that. So it is a noisy project. When you look at the survey, it says, well, they said, what'd they say, the footage of the tank was gonna be off the thing? Off the property line, Kim's property line, they just mentioned it.
128, 126, 28 feet.
Doesn't say it on here,
Yeah, it actually does.
not on the one I got. Can you blow that up so we can all see it?
Well, I can show you, if that's the one over here, I can show it to you.
And it says apparent property line. Is that the real property line? Is it to the left? Is it to the right? Apparent is not a fact. I submit that this project creates its own hardship. First and foremost, it's a square peg in a round hole. Fabian said that they want to do this because it saves them travel time and too much money to send the truck someplace else. Well, they should have bought someplace else instead of in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Now, we've heard testimony about the distance from the tank to the property line. Just this last meeting, we heard it was 126 feet. And then a few sentences later, it was 129 feet. Well, I got this document here that says 114 feet, and I got this document here that says minimum of 50 feet. Where's the proof of what it's really going to be? And we still got more main law about aquifers. That's a serious concern. That's my drinking water. I drink out of my well. So, and our ordinance is adamant. Our ordinance shall have a hydrogeological study. This is not a waivable item. And I don't know where to take this up, but I do have concerns about the legality of the selectmen making this amendment anyhow. And for those of you who may not know, this use was just put in this past October specifically for Fabian. Because if it wasn't, then they would have let Deer Pond Fuel do it many years ago. And we got a lot of main law that says things like compatibility in the area. So, you know, there's some things you ought to look into there. And here's the laundry list of, where's the proof? Outdoor lighting, the boundaries. And since we're introducing new evidence, can I see your copies of this, gentlemen, please? All right. Is that 24 by 36? As dictated by the site plan review ordinance? Otherwise, the application is not complete. And again, we're right back to stormwater management.
Oh, is this the same drawing?
There you go.
So it is 24 by 36.
Yeah, that'll do. And I guess we can't really bring up the poor quality service we got from previous. Certain concerns, because that main, I pulled up this main law, which lists the uses of what they consider going agriculture, and it does not mention bulk fuels. More main law about ordinance, we have to create ordinance to discourage incompatible, which is exactly what this is. This is a truck stop in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and it's not just these 5 houses. You start at Dollar General, go north, house, 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 house. We moved into agriculture and residential because that's exactly what it was. There's 2 other places, we have 2 other zones in town where this was always allowed. And again, this was only put in this past October 5th. Main law does go on and on and on about is there any other places you can put this. Of course there is. There's a gravel pit right across the street. There's a property across from Abbott's Motorsports. It does ask good questions like is there any other places between here and wherever they get their fuel that they could put it? Do you have any proof that they even tried? They created their own hardship. They came here, they bought a piece of property, they looked around, they saw it was quiet, they bought it anyhow. And now they want to make a truck stop. That's creating its own hardship. And do you have anything signed off by our fire marshal? I saw the Fabian paperwork.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So I guess the mishaps and the non-compliance of the planning board can't be introduced here? Because we got this new thing we're doing. I'm not sure when that got amended into the ordinance. Yeah, this is main law, no reasonable alternative sites. Have they even tried? More main law about our ordinances, have to comply, oh, there we go. The comprehensive plan, which the state takes very seriously, because they actually mention it in state law. And it says ordinance have to comply with comprehensive plan. Well, our comprehensive plan does not allow bulk fuel and AR zone. So you have to consider that the amendment the selectmen did is, I won't call it illegal, there must be a word I'm looking for here, but the bottom line is what the selectmen did by adding that now puts us in conflict with state law, which dictates ordinances have to match the comprehensive plan. Now, that comprehensive plan was drafted, as I understand, by 17 people in this community who volunteered their time for a couple of years and said, this is the way we want this community. And they left AR. And we voted that through. So the selectmen's amendment does call into question a lot, just to, what about all the work everybody did? I know I voted for the comprehensive plan, and it wasn't in there when I voted for it. So you need to consider that as well. And let's see here. I'm still waiting for the hydrogeological study, which this really shouldn't move forward without that. Because again, that's my drinking water they're driving over. Fire hazard, all the way, if our fire trucks are tied up. What about your houses? And when it comes to whether these tanks can be punctured or not, Fabian, in their own admittance, first gentleman stood up here and said, no, we got a study that says they will deflect. But then their own lawyer brought their own expert who said, yeah, it'll penetrate it. Then they said, well, what happens when, you poke a hole in it? They said, well, the gas is going to leak out. Will it blow up? They said, no. Unfortunately, that's just not true. We've seen the devastation in Farmington and the one recently. When propane blows up, it annihilates everything.
Okay, I don't remember anyone saying that a bullet would go through it. They said if a bullet
All right.
was able to penetrate it, it would be in liquid form, and then as soon as it came out, it would become.
Well, okay, so I'll go with the if. That's not how I heard it, but I'll be willing to work with that. I'll point out it's the same as gasoline. Gasoline by nature is flammable. It becomes combustible when it's mixed with oxygen. In propane, you can't say it's not going to blow up. I mean, we just had another firefighter killed recently because of propane explosions. And it's not about who caused it or what happened. It's about what happens when propane does explode. And that's a serious fire concern. It's right in the middle of a forest. And I'll leave you with that thought. I'd like to see a whole lot more in writing before you pass this. I mean, there's just so much. All I hear people saying they're going to do this. And Ms. Burns, you can stop me for what I'm about to say if it's inappropriate, or not inappropriate, but Fabian already has a history in this town of non-compliance. When we did the expansion of our East Waterboro location, 7 members on the planning board put a condition on that property that there would be a privacy fence. protecting those houses, because they stood right here and
Which
asked us.
property is that?
The East Waterboro Marketplace. Yeah, just up from Napa.
Okay.
Yeah.
When they
Where
did
the fuel, the bulk fuel oil is? Where the oil tanks are?
this gas station with the
Oh,
deli.
gas
You know, the big
Okay.
expansion there.
Okay.
And the people came, see, it was allowed use in that area. They were just expanding a smaller station. But the people said, well, our houses are right there. Can you do something for us? So we voted unanimously, there'd be a privacy fence. Go look, it's still not there. That's why you need to put everything in writing before you pass this, if you're gonna pass this. Because then we're still gonna have to hound the code enforcement officer to go over there and make sure it gets done. Thank you.
Mr. Boudreau?
Yeah, the only last thing I've got is, there's nothing in there on the operational hours. Is this gonna be 24/7 in a residential area? There's nothing in there that tells you the hours. I live there. I'd like to know what the hours are. I know what the hours are when Deer Pond Fuel was there. These will probably not be the same hours. So I'd like to see what the hours are.
I think we did hear about that
Yep.
last week, where they talked that they would be filling the tank on off hours at night. So we do know that.
And do we know it's 7 days a week?
In writing.
There's nowhere that says anything on that.
I would
'Cause
imagine it's gonna be like anyone else. If you need heat and oil, you need heat and oil. It's
Correct,
gonna
but
be
that-
when
that-
you need it.
that-
So if
that-
they need fuel on a Sunday, it's gonna be on a
It changes the
Sunday.
use to what it was, right? It wasn't used this way, it ain't used that way now. It changes the use. It goes from normal operating hours from 5 to 6 to now, and it's not 7 days a week, to something different than that. So it's a change in the use. I'd just like to know what the change is and something to say, okay, if it's 24/7, then it's 24/7. But is it, between 5 in the morning and 6 at night, or is it whenever you want? So that's just, or are all the trucks gonna come in on the weekend? Because we don't want to deliver them during the week. Just what is it gonna be? That's my only other concern. Thank you.
I guess I'll go backwards and start with Mr. Boudreau's concerns, if you don't mind. So, as far as hours of operation, our existing operation, there's no restrictions on our existing operations, so we're really not here to discuss any of our existing operations. Just because we can operate 24/7, we can now, it doesn't mean we do. As Mr. Lehman said, we operate as needed. Generally, it's 3 times the amount that you would in the summer, and if we're filling that tank once a week in the summer, we're filling that tank every day in the winter, once a day. It doesn't always mean it's at night, but it's a product of who needs what when. We're not a Cumberland Farms that's open 24/7. We're not a retail public operation that sells anything like a store does. We're not a 24/7 truck stop. We don't dispense truck fuel. We don't operate an auto gas facility for propane. That came up before. We don't dispense gasoline into vehicles. It is what it is. It's a retail heating oil operation, as are all the other ones, like the Dead River one right down in Hollis, with no restrictions. We are subject to hours of service on drivers. We can't run 24/7. I mean, people don't want our trucks at their house in the middle of the
I
night.
understand your normal operations are gonna be normal hours.
Right, so the
normal
only-
working hours.
Yeah,
So
so-
the question of concern, I think Mr. Boudreau's bringing up is the large tractor trailers that are gonna be filling your storage tank. So what is the capacity of a bobtail?
Bobtail's 2,500 gallons.
2,500 gallons, and you currently have one,
One.
and you're planning on 2.
We're going to have 2 this season.
So you're
yes.
planning on,
So if they make 2 trips a
5,000.
day, that's 10,000 gallons.
Okay.
That's
So
less
that's
than
one
one
tanker.
tractor trailer.
one tanker every single day.
Well, the tank the 30,000 capacity holds 24,000, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't need one a day at two
Every
trips a
other
day.
day.
It won't be.
Okay, so
yeah,
one
it'd
every
be every
other
other day. Right, so it's nominal. It's not,
And how long does it take them to unload a truck?
the tractor trailer could probably unload roughly 30 minutes.
Okay.
And I believe that
And there's a loud pump on the truck to...
there's a PTO pump. It's not,
Okay.
first of all, it's not running at high, it's running at, the PTO runs at idle. The guy doesn't sit there and, on the gas because he's supposed to be out watching everything. As far as the trucks, let me just run this down because I could provide all the VIN numbers from Deer Pond. Deer Pond did operate out of there. So for Deer Pond, they had 20 vehicles there. We have 10, half the amount. And I'll break it down. The direct operations of the retail oil company at Deer Pond had 5 oil delivery trucks. We have 3 and 1 propane truck. So we have 4 out of their 5. They had 4 motor units for tractor trailer operations. We have 3. They had 6 trailers there. I believe 4 were flatbed operations, 3 were tankers, and we only have 3. So we have half the amount of trailer capacity they do. So 15 direct operational vehicles to our 9. Even if, if we add the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 6, we're getting to theirs. They also had on site, and the only reason I know this is because the schedule closing, we bought all these vehicles. They had an F-350, which is a wash to our tank set truck. They had a loader, they had a backhoe, an excavator, and a bulldozer on site. It's 20 to 10. We have half the amount of vehicles there. So if we're comparing to what Deer Pond did, we're running half, and we do it more efficiently. And if we have our propane on site, and we don't have to go to South Portland, we're going to run even more efficiently, and not have to add on even more trucks to add on to when we increase our business.
Okay.
That was, I believe, all that Mr. Boudreau brought up.
Let's talk about the light pole.
The light poles are, the standard light pole we use is 20 feet with a cut off downward. Right now on the plan, and as far as plans and site drawings, all we were required to do is a site plan review. This isn't the actual build out. That would be under the State of Maine Fuel Board to approve a final plan, which runs along this. The code enforcement officer to ensure that we're complying with everything and that we're doing what we said. Yes, the 50 feet that Mr. Prescott refers to is the NFPA standard. It says right there just the minimum.
I believe we understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't anticipate more than 2 light poles, one at the tanks and one at the fill station.
And they're both no taller than 20 feet.
They don't have to be, no. They're probably, at the fill station, I might have a light bulb for the gentleman to see what
You
he's
use
doing.
these other light poles in other locations, the same?
Yeah, I have a picture on my phone, if you want me to email it to Ann. They are 4-inch metal, because they're near this environment, the code requires not wood, metal, so they're 4-inch square, they're like 4x4 metal poles, and they look like this, and the LED lights like this. So in the previous planning board, the condition was that it be cut off, they're not like complete floods, they're specific to the area we're working in.
Okay. Dwayne mentioned the aquifer. Did you, in any of your presentation, previously mention aquifers?
I'm going to have to defer to the engineer, if I may. I'm not an engineer on that, so.
I believe the ordinance refers to activities or uses that would have an effect on the aquifer in terms of discharges.
Right, and I'm not, my question is, are there aquifers on that property?
I have no information on that. I don't think that our side mentioned
So you guys
aquifers.
haven't presented that there is an aquifer?
I have no information on that. I don't know that our side
It's
ever
not
mentioned.
come up, it wasn't part of the criteria.
My understanding is this is a review of the planning board, so decisions, so basically all the other things like the hydro study and stuff would have to be done for permitting, not for site plan, or?
It would, actually, the requirement for a hydrogeological study is in the site plan ordinance, which is part of what you're reviewing tonight, but the requirement is that the applicant have a hydrogeological study done for any project utilizing an on-site septic disposal system with a system flow in excess of 800 gallons per day, and that doesn't apply to this project. So no hydrogeological study was required for this project. Might be required in other cases, but it wasn't required here.
Okay. Do you gentlemen have any other questions?
Yeah.
You guys want to speak again?
Yeah, well,
Want to make sure we
we're
cover
good.
everything.
We're good. I just really request that you get everything in writing specific, please.
Which will be part of the permit.
Well, because I'm just hearing a lot of, in writing, please.
Do you guys actually use the Jake brakes a lot? Or engine brakes, sorry.
I can't honestly answer that. I could ask them not to if they do. I'll be perfectly honest with you, when I'm out there and we're surveying the property, it's really hard to hear anything on the highway. I mean, whether it's a Jake brake from us, whether it's a truck or it's a dump truck, I'm not trying to avoid the answer. It's a highway. They're moving 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, I understand. Or if you could ask your guy.
I have no problem. I mean, I have offered mitigation regarding the shooting. We could post the property. I could ask them not to use the Jake brake. I've accommodated the fire department. They asked me to go to 20 feet with a circle in one way. Perfectly accommodated. It's the restrictions that don't apply to our business or our project that we have issue with. But I would absolutely do that.
Okay. I think we're at that point unless you have anything else. Natalie?
I don't have anything else, but I will be
You're
ready
going to go
to.
through the list for us?
I'm going to be ready. I did a little bit in advance based on what was done last week, so hopefully it won't take quite as long as it otherwise might. I'm just trying to write up a condition of approval that we need to
Excellent.
have.
Thanks, Dave.
And as I go through this, please feel free to stop me if you feel that I've misstated anything. I did base it upon this, upon my extensive notes from last week, and hopefully I got everything correct. This is an appeal from the Planning Board's conditional use approval of the application by E23 LLC, later referred to as the applicant, for the installation of a single bulk LP storage tank to be utilized for the filling of delivery trucks, as well as the installation of a small tank filling station to be located on property located at 1120 Secocas Trail, tax map 13, lot 43-001. The decision was appealed by David Boudreau of 5 Hansel Drive and by Laura Prescott, Bradford Prescott, Jacqueline Prescott, Kimberly Prescott Brady, and Dwayne Prescott, all of whom were represented by Dana Prescott, Esquire, and they're all collectively going to be referred to as the appellants later in the decision. The Zoning Board of Appeals, referred to later as the board, held a hearing on the appeal on May 12th and May 19th. E23 LLC was represented by William Lee Esquire. The board conducted its review under the provisions of Section 9.03 of the zoning ordinance. This section requires the board to conduct a de novo review of any matter under appeal and to receive oral and/or documentary evidence on the application. The applicant presented testimony concerning the operation of the proposed new propane tank, which will be added to existing operations on the site. There will be up to, now this all changed tonight. So there will be up to 2 transport trucks. I think I should say 2 delivery trucks.
Well, I'm not sure we limited that.
Well, this is what they said, and so what we're going to talk about at the end of this is that I'm going to propose to you the standard condition of approval that says things that they said as part of their presentation here are part of the approval. And so if they want,
stated it that way.
well, and that's why we've got to
Right.
fix all of this right
And
now.
I didn't hear it that way, that's why.
Okay, so we'll fix that.
Questioned it.
So we need to get a little bit more. What I got tonight was that there would be 2 bobtails a day. I'm planning on 2 bobtails a day. If
That
there's no,
that was the current
If
status,
you do-
and they set up to 4.
if this board does not want to restrict the number of trips, you don't have to. I just wasn't sure if you wanted to have something that said, for now, this is what you're going to do, and if you want to expand in the future, you go back to the planning board. That's up to you. I'm not recommending it one way or the
I
other.
think what we heard in the presentation, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that they had one now that was doing 1.5 trips a day during the winter. They planned on running 2 trucks next winter if this gets approved, and they were going to grow and not exceed 4 trucks. Is that what I heard?
I don't know that we're not going to exceed 4 trucks. I don't believe I said that. I said, I would hope we get to 4 trucks. But we could grow. I mean, the capacity of the tank, because we're only going to 130,000.
Right.
At some point, it's going to be at its maximum. And what that is, I
And what's
don't.
the maximum? I mean, if you're,
If I did,
if you
I
had
do some
4
quick math, just,
yeah, you're doing 4 trucks.
like I said, just because we're allowed to operate 24/7 or whatever unrestricted capacity doesn't mean we do. But in Maine, we don't like to be, have the leash put on us, so to speak. It is our property, and it's not like we had the opportunity to look for other properties.
I understand that,
So let me just do
but
some
for-
math here. So if I did 30,000 a day, which is now 24.5, divided by 2,500, there could be 10 bobtail loads a day out of there, divided by 2, that would be 5 trucks.
And you base that on 30. You only have
Well,
24.
30,000 gallon tank doesn't hold 30, it only holds
Right,
24.5.
so you base that on the 24.
I based that on the 24.5. If I filled that tank to its limit every day, I could do 2 trip trucks a day. But I could do 10 one truckloads, it's the same thing. It's 10 truckloads at 2,500.
Could somebody just tell me how many trucks
Sure.
could be
So
per
I-
day?
I'm sorry, I
My-
can't hear you.
My opinion,
23. How many tanks can you put on 23 acres of that size?
and let's not go there,
That's one.
let's
That's one.
start.
That's
We're
all
only-
you're approving.
We're only applying for one.
Right.
I would have to reapply if I wanted to.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, so
Back
let's,
again.
let's
I wanted to make sure
limit
what you thought.
to no more than 4.
I'd have to
That will be a condition of approval.
Yeah.
Let's limit them to no more than 4 trucks,
What more?
no more than 4 bobtails.
Okay, that's the little
That's the
regular
small.
residential truck.
Right.
Is that what the
So we're
HSA
limiting it to 4 bobtails. By the time you get 4 bobtails, you're looking at an expansion anyway. So then you're gonna have to come back to the planning board.
Well, it would be, so let me just, it would be 10 bobtail trips a day. So that's
Right.
That was
5 times 2,
To empty it every single day.
yes.
Okay.
So to restrict me to 4, doesn't allow me to use the tank on a daily capacity basis if I get there. I mean, this is gonna take us a while to get there. I mean, I just don't understand how we put a restriction on something that's not there yet.
Actually, I kind of agree with you. If it's operating during normal business hours for the bobtails, and it's only 2 tractor trailers regardless if you're using all of it or
Right.
most of it. So I Okay,
Well, I'm gonna have to completely rewrite that.
sorry.
No, that's quite all right.
I did-
It's gotta be right.
Ross is right,
Doesn't have to
I'm
be
not
fast.
gonna answer, but I didn't answer one of Mr. Prescott's questions. I don't want to, I do, but I don't want to now.
Okay.
It was a non-issue.
So the applicant will have no more than how many large delivery trucks? We're not talking about the bobtails, we're talking about the tankers.
Do
No
we need
more
to
than-
limit it? It's a
Well, you don't-
30,000 gallon tank, I think it limits
Okay.
himself.
Okay,
only do one a day.
well, it's a lot easier if I don't limit it.
Or one at night?
It's a 30,000 gallon tank.
It could be day, it could be night. I
It
mean,
doesn't matter.
yeah.
Okay. No, I was just thinking.
We got into a long
It's
way.
not always
back
enough.
to simple, so.
We're just
So,
gonna take that
yeah.
all out, take the
Yes.
whole thing out, easy enough. It's gonna have to come out later on too. The propane tank will be located on 2 concrete piers, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, both the tank and all piping will be located entirely above ground.
That is correct.
Well, this I know is correct. The tank is a 30,000 gallon tank that is made of material that is 0.82 inches in thickness. The applicant submitted a fire safety analysis prepared by TRC Environmental Corporation dated January 18th, 2022 as part of the planning board's review. The applicant will also construct a driveway to access the proposed tank. This will be used this will be constructed of processed material, and so no dust will be generated by vehicles using the drive. The applicant has agreed to have all vehicles access the tank in a clockwise direction in order to minimize the impact of vehicular light on abutting properties. The lighting of the project will consist of full cutoff LED fixtures on 20-foot metal poles.
Those are, you said intrinsically safe, right?
If they're within 15 feet, they're Class 1 Div 1, which is not only intrinsically safe, they're explosion proof.
Explosion proof.
It's 15 feet from the closest distribution points. It's not the tank, so if the hose can go out 10 feet, it'll be right there. It's all good. That's the state's requirement, not ours.
Should I add which are explosion proof?
No,
that's
only,
required.
yeah.
You don't have to
Okay.
add
The
that.
the
Okay.
fuel board permits that, the
Okay.
state permits, does the permitting.
Then the fixtures will be on a motion sensor, but last week it was said, but the sensor may be overridden from time to time depending upon operations such as when someone is working. The application requires review under the site plan standards which apply to conditional uses. And then we get to the standards. So number 1, the proposed development meets the definitions and/or requirements set forth in the zoning ordinance. Section 3.06.02.21 states that bulk propane storage, including propane tank refill station and small propane tank swap cages, are allowed as a conditional use in the agriculture and residential district AR, provided that such uses are on a lot that is greater than 5 acres in size. The property exceeds 5 acre minimum because it is over 22 acres. Structures in the AR zoning district must meet a minimum 35-foot setback. The proposal will be located a minimum of 114 feet from the closest residence. Again, I've heard different numbers on this one.
Well, it's different directions, I believe, is why. different
Whose
numbers.
house, who?
What is the closest?
What's the closest one?
The tank to the property line.
Well,
Do you
what's the
want the
tank,
tank to the
what's the
residence?
tank to the property?
126.
Correct.
126 feet from the
126,
closest property
correct.
line?
Yeah.
That's the closest, probably. Okay.
Right.
Good.
Okay, great, thank you. It will be located 400 feet from, I should say, Secocas
Oh,
Trail, not
that's to
the
the
road.
fence.
Oh, it's to the fence, okay.
The tank itself is going to
Be a little
be
more,
another,
yeah.
yeah.
Do we need all that?
But-
Or do we need just the
Yeah,
closest?
we just read that, and I was like, wait a minute.
I'm just going to put
That's
in
where he was
it's
getting the
126 feet
114.
because
Okay.
we're just trying to show that it meets the 35-foot minimum
It's been a long
setback
day.
requirement under the
I've been working
ordinance,
since
which it
4:30.
exceeds.
It's a long day.
Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, the proposed development will not create fire safety hazards by not providing adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles or adequate fire suppression systems. Access to the site is from Secocas Trail. Turning radii have been determined to be adequate for the proposed use. That probably should have gone someplace else. That probably should have gone under number 3. The applicant made a thorough presentation to the ZBA on fire safety and access and presented a fire safety analysis prepared by TRC Environmental Corporation as part of its planning board review. The applicant provided additional testimony that if there is a leak from the tank of any delivery truck, the leaked propane will turn into a vapor. Because the tank and all lines are above ground, such vapor would dissipate quickly without creating a fire hazard. There are remote shutoffs for the tank in case of an emergency, and the fire department will be trained in both the location of those and safety requirements. The applicant has a safety and compliance officer to monitor and review this and other sites owned by the applicant. The fire department has indicated that it supports the project subject to 2 conditions of approval that have been agreed to by the applicant. First, site-specific emergency response training shall be provided by the applicant to the staff of the Waterboro Fire Department upon completion of the project, but before occupancy is granted. Second, as-built plans shall be provided to the fire department indicating the location of all emergency valve and/or control locations. Number 3, the proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets, be inadequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site, or will damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties. The site lighting will be full cutoff LED fixtures that should not result in light spillover on abutting or neighboring properties. They will be approximately 400 feet from the road. The lighting will generally operate on a photocell with motion sensor, and in that case would only be on when operations are occurring. It is possible that the sensors can be overridden if required for a specific operation. However, the cutoff lighting fixtures should prevent light spillover in such instances. The height of the light poles will be 20 feet, and the poles must be metal. Number 4, the provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provides adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development. The applicant provided slides showing that there is a significant buffer of approximately, I'm going to need help with this, 100 feet, is that correct?
Scale's 80.
I think it's 80.
80, okay, thank you. The
Can
buffer
you read that
will,
again?
the applicant provided,
confused.
oh, sorry then.
No, I was trying to figure out where she got the 100 from, but it was.
It was
okay.
80. I thought somebody said 100, but it's possible they said 80. The buffer will provide adequate protection to the neighboring properties. I don't know if you want to put this in or not. The Boudreaux residence is approximately 400 feet from the site. I don't know if you want that in there or not. Okay. The proposed development will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property as a result of noise, vibrations, fume, odor, dust, glare, or other cause. The applicant has demonstrated that there will be no dust from the drive. The operation of the trucks onto the site should minimize glare due to the agreed-to operation of trucks accessing the tank in a clockwise direction. The applicant provided testimony that there would not be odor or fumes from the normal operation of the tank and the trucks. The provided setbacks exceed the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance. And the buffers will provide further protection to the neighboring properties.
Do you ever have to blow that tank down for any reason? Like cleaning it or?
I mean, operated properly doesn't need cleaning because it's the atmosphere doesn't contain oxygen, so the tank's coming in a vacuum. I mean, I've seen them flared off, but
So it would only be an emergency?
yeah. I mean, yeah. That would be in consultation with the fire. That would,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
There's a process.
Continue, Natalie.
Yeah, even though I'm not sure this is covered by the ordinance, because it was brought up, I did put in response to inquiries from the appellants, the applicant provided information concerning the potential impact of a stray bullet resulting from hunting activities on neighboring properties. Due to the construction of the tank, a bullet is unlikely to penetrate, and even if it does, it will result in the release of propane that will turn into vapor. The provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety or will not impose significant burdens on public facilities, which could be avoided by a reasonable modification of the plan. The applicant provided a thorough description of vehicular circulation on the site. Parking will be in support of the operations. Is there an existing office use on the site?
Yes.
Yes, including the existing office use. Because vehicles will exit and enter at different times of day, the circulation onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety or impose a significant burden on public facilities. Members of the public will not be entering the property since there are no retail operations there. The small propane tanks to be stored on site are collected by applicant from other businesses and returned to them. Number 7, the bulk, location, height, or design of proposed building structures or paved areas or the proposed uses thereof will not have a significant detrimental effect on private development on adjacent properties or on the value of adjacent properties, which could be avoided by reasonable modifications of the plan. The proposed tank and associated piping and pad structure exceed the minimum, I keep forgetting to say minimum, the minimum required setbacks and are behind existing buildings. The buffer will protect existing or proposed private development on adjacent properties. The applicant provided as evidence several slides showing similar or larger propane facilities in areas where they are located much closer to neighboring residential, institutional, and commercial development. This supports the conclusion that there should not be a significant detrimental effect on the development or the value of adjacent properties. Number 8, the design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with the applicable flood hazard protection regulations. The property is not in a flood zone. The proposed development is limited to the drive and the driveway and the tank and associated facilities, which should not cause any flood hazard. The soils are adequate to convey stormwater to the existing ditches on Secaucus Trail. Number 9, adequate provisions have been made for the disposal of wastewater or solid waste or for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination. The proposal will not generate wastewater. The existing office use is already served by a wastewater system. The operation will not generate solid waste beyond what is already generated on the site. Number 10, adequate provisions have been made to control erosion or sedimentation. The only changes to the property will be the installation of the tank and the associated facilities, including the driveway, the lighting, and the storage cage for small propane tanks. Required erosion and sedimentation control measures will be in use during construction, and disturbed areas will be restored when construction is complete. Number 11, adequate provisions have been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site, and any proposed stormwater detention ponds are adequate to serve stormwater on or from the site. The proposed improvements will not make any material changes to the existing site and as such will not cause drainage problems of any type. Fine sandy loams on site are sufficient to allow drainage to flow to existing drainage on Secaucus Road. Number 12, the proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use and is adequate for fire protection purposes. The fire department has indicated that it is satisfied with the fire protection plan for the property and that there is adequate water service. The addition of the tank will not generate the need for additional water supply beyond the existing supply. Number 13, adequate provisions have been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law and the hazardous waste ordinance. The applicant must comply with all applicable requirements for the proposed operation, including the requirements of NFPA 58. This includes at least an annual inspection of the pilots and their replacement at least every 10 years. Further, the applicant must comply with all applicable requirements of the Maine Fuel Board and will be subject to inspection by that board. The app.
Okay, what are the pilots that you referred to?
What were the pilots? There was something that gets inspected every year and is replaced every 10 years. What was that?
That would be the relief valve system.
The relief valves. I will fix that. Thank you. You know, I was picturing a pilot light and thinking, that doesn't sound right.
Yes, and that all falls under state and federal code.
So the relief valves, is that correct? Sorry about that. That makes much more sense, and that's why I read these things. The applicant has submitted substantial testimony about the safety procedures associated with the proposed tank, and propane is not a hazardous waste that is regulated by the hazardous waste ordinance. Number 14, the proposed use will not have an adverse impact on significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat, which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. No significant scenic vistas or significant wildlife habitat exist on the site. Number 15, the project will not increase nitrogen concentration, I hope I've got that right, in surface or groundwater at the property line of the site in excess of state of Maine drinking water standards. If groundwater contains contaminants in excess of the primary drinking water standards and the project is to be served by on-site groundwater supplies, the applicant shall demonstrate how water quality will be improved to treat will be improved or treated to meet applicable standards. The proposal does not require a subsurface wastewater disposal system or an expansion of the existing system. The applicant has provided evidence that in the event of a propane leak, it will not contaminate groundwater or soils. So with that, those are the draft findings, which we can go back and fix anything or change anything you want to change. There are, I'd suggest, 3 conditions of approval, the 2 for the fire department that I've already read, and the other one would be what we call the standard condition of approval that usually planning boards use. Zoning boards don't always use them. The approval is based upon the plan submitted, the evidence provided, and all representations made by the applicant and its representatives. Any changes will require an amended approval by the planning board.
You guys okay with that?
The storage units, are they publicly, do public people use them, or are they?
Yeah, that was an existing operation that was purchased from Deer Pond.
Okay.
What's that? Swap of tanks?
No, they have
No,
like
that's-
self-storage
oh,
units on the
self-storage.
property.
Self-storage.
And I would assume that you guys have some kind of a cleanup kit in case one of your trucks leaks?
We're required
Leaks
to.
oil or...
We have to. The DOT, that's all DOT.
You guys don't do mechanical work at the site?
No, there is a garage. We have a full garage up in Oakland. For the trucks down here, we go to outside services. But there was garages here. I mean, we could, we haven't thought about it yet.
I'm just trying to think of something that, they might say, well, what about oil leaking into the ground?
Well, I mean, we could cross that bridge when it comes to it, but the garage will require a B code with DOT and capture drains and oil water separators. That's a whole different.
The other thing about the storage units, are they going to be separated from where the tank is?
They
Like,
they
fence or
exceed they far exceed the distance. I was 160 feet.
No, not the distance, could somebody I'm going to my storage unit and walk up to this tank?
The tank's fenced in.
Okay,
Yeah.
just around the tank.
The tank is fenced in.
6 foot high
So
fence.
the tank and its appurtenances are fenced in.
Okay, that was just a curious question.
That's an NFPA requirement.
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Anything else?
Do you have anything else? Did those sound okay? Well, I'll find out if they're okay when you do a motion
Very
and
clear, very
vote.
concise. I think you hit everything we discussed. And we need to make a vote on this, correct?
Well, ideally, we should go through each one of them and vote each standard with the findings.
Each one of what? The 15?
One through, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just do a motion, number one, as set forth, including the findings proposed. And we just do each one of those. That's what the courts have told us they prefer us to do, so we do it.
Motion to accept.
Oh, no, we did this last time.
What's the exact
Yeah,
wording? Motion to accept.
Unless,
They can do it as a bulk.
and if the vote is going to be the same on all of them, I think that you can do them all in one vote and adopt the findings rather than going through the
That'd be-
15, because we just went through them and discussed
We
them.
just
I
went
think
through
you,
them and
I think you can do
No, and there's
that.
no objection
Motion
to
to take
doing it
the-
that
Do
way.
we have anyone that's going to challenge that?
Well, we have people who have standing to challenge, but I think that as long as you've gone through each of the standards
Which
and
we
you
have.
do a vote that includes all of them, includes all of the findings, I think it'll be fine.
Couldn't you take-
We're in agreement.
We don't object.
Nobody wants to sit through it.
It takes so long to do it otherwise.
Thank you.
So,
So do we have to make a motion to accept all 15 as one? Or do we-
You will make a motion to approve the project as presented and to adopt the findings and conclusions and conditions of approval as read and discussed by the board. And then we'll turn it into a written document.
okay, so I need to read that entire motion over.
No, the motion can be to, actually, the motion will be, I've got a motion here, I do have one. Based upon the above, well, I think the first motion should be that the board finds that the application meets the 15 site plan criteria applicable to the project. That should be the first motion. Then the second motion should be in support of that, the board adopts the findings, conclusions, and conditions of approval discussed, and then there'll be a final motion to deny the appeal.
Appeals.
The appeals, thank you, Bill.
You have that, make motions.
Findings
I did
and
actually have the
conditions.
appeals, but
A motion to accept the findings and conditions.
You
Is the
want to
rest of it?
accept your site plan review standards first.
first you want to do a motion that you determine that
Right.
the 15 site plan standards have been met
Right, I
by
was
the
just
applicant.
writing
Yep.
everything down so I can make the.
Okay.
So we can make the motions, but.
Great.
About memory.
Yeah, my memory is not that good.
Mine isn't either.
So the finding, the second one is going to be the motion to accept the findings, conditions.
The findings, conclusions, and conditions.
Conclusions and
Yeah.
conditions.
Yeah.
Do you want to say conclusions of law?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
And then deny the appeal.
Yeah, the appeals by, and we can name the names if you want, but I think you can just say deny the appeals.
Alright. So, I will make a motion. I will make a motion to accept the application. Okay. That the application meets all 15 standards set forth in
In the site plan.
the site plan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Any discussion?
Second that motion.
Yeah? Any discussion?
No?
All in favor?
And second is, I make a motion that we accept the findings, conclusions, and conditions
Of this
of
project.
the project.
We have a second. on that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And I'll make a motion that we deny the appeals.
I second that motion.
Okay, who'll second that?
Andy,
Andy?
any discussion on that? All in favor?
That is
Meeting
all we need to
adjourned.
do on this.
Motion, right?